Hi, Leo Knight in Tellurico. And it's a new day for Perspectives from the Sky. We meet every other Saturday at 1 o'clock Pacific time. Those who've been watching it, first in radio, it's listened to, but now this radio is like obviously visual, which is great. I like it. So it's not really TV, not really radio, it's streaming. But what I care about is that we're able to get the message from our show out to people. Starting in December 2019 and into January 2020, just a huge shift happened. The coronavirus came onto the scene. And those of us that follow the astrology knew something was going to happen that was going to be powerful and, in effect, destructive at the same time. Keep in mind, destructive is ultimately something good, too, in a lot of cases, because it's destroying the old in order to make room for the new. In this case, a new age of Aquarius. So that Saturn-Pluto conjunction in early January 2020 was indicative of this change that was going to be powerful starting then. And don't forget that there were two eclipses that were going on at the same time in December, January 2020. And Uranus, another transformational planet, was changing directions from retrograde to direct. So the COVID came on the scene, and with it, the economy went south too, because people couldn't go to work and they were losing their jobs, and things looked pretty bleak at that time. Then came the next eclipse season. That was in May, June of 2020. And that one also shook things up a little more, especially noted of the racial difficulties, challenges, horrors that happened during that time. A black man had a policeman knee on his neck until he choked and died. And that caused riots on the streets, protests, because of the complete, unbelievable condition of race relations at that time. I mean, that's true. Going back to the 60s and 70s, yeah, that was rough. And hopefully, I'd like to say there's been improvement since then. Sure looks like it on the surface. But what's been happening recently, especially starting with that, what happened to that black man, that was that showed us how far away we were from good race relations. So things got pretty chaotic. And then it also brought up the culture war that's been going on. That one got really intense during Trump's presidency, when there was a total solar eclipse in Leo in August of 2017. And that's when they had the white supremacists and the Nazis in Charlottesville, Virginia. And then that brought out the Great Culture War, which took us back in memory to the Civil War, because there were similar issues that were coming up. So a lot of people get, when they see these things happening, it's like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. Well, to use a saying that people have been doing for quite a while, it's the end of the world as we knew it. That really is happening. And that's why things sometimes seem so drastic, because that can't happen unless drastic measures are taken. And we can't move the way we'd like to move into the new age, into the new world, as long as we're carrying in our psyches the baggage from that old age? How can we go forward into a new age when there's people who still want what people wanted during the Civil War in the South, as far as slavery goes? How can we possibly move forward if that was still there? Got to be cleaned up, got to be reconciled, so we can move on. There's a lot of other issues like that too. We don't need to go into all of them because you all know so many issues to work through from that old age. But just keep in mind in general that old age is about every man for himself. And we know that can't work. So let's take a look at evolution for a second. Survival of the fittest. That suggests each one of us is fighting in competition with someone else to survive. If Darwin's theory is true and accurate, then it's easy to see what the next step is in survival of the fittest. The next step is we see ourselves as one. And from that place, we can survive together. Because if we keep on a separate course, we won't survive. There's nuclear weapons that have been built. If we stay stubborn in this separateness, they will be used. Climate change, something else we all need to come together about. Because if we don't, we won't be around. Some scientists say it's only a few years before that becomes a horrible issue. So that's another reason we need to come together as one human family. And we can do it because we're ready, because it's time. We also on this show have been talking about ETs and UFOs. We've had a couple of guests on in that regard. And I promise you, very soon, we're going to step up that to a whole nother level. We're going to have a lot of people who have a lot of experience in that world, who are experiencers themselves, who may say they've been abducted. This last week, I was very honored that a new friend of mine, Will, sent me an email saying that in the John E. Mack, MD website, they wanted to put up the interview that I gave of him in October of 2002. And they wanted to put that up on the website. I was very touched by that. I felt very good. If I haven't mentioned on the show, maybe I haven't, you didn't listen to that particular show, but John Mack was a Boston, Harvard psychiatrist. He also was the head of psychiatry too. And he decided to get involved in finding out what this abduction by ETs was all about. Of course, in intellectual circles, that was laughed at, as all, crazy people would say that couldn't happen to a sane person. So he interviewed people all across the country and eventually all around the world. And what did he come up with as a conclusion? Well, he expected it to be they're all mentally ill. He's a psychiatrist. And the bizarre stories way outside the box. So he expected it to be, yeah, they're mentally ill. But he went out and did the interviewing to see if that was the truth. He found out just the opposite. He came back saying, something, all these people, I believe they're legitimate. I would give them psychological testing and have long conversations with them. And not only do I feel they're mentally sane and telling the truth according to as they see it, but also the different people who had said they were abducted had very, 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 very similar stories to one another. They had not talked to one another. Believe me, someone in China who'd been abducted and somebody in Kentucky who'd been abducted were not talking to each other. So that intrigued him and made him believe that these stories were true. the conclusion that he ended up coming to was he wasn't sure how much was true in the actual physical world that they saw these ships and these ETs, and how much was them slipping into another dimension that brought them to that. But he felt there was a combination of the two. And every case of people that he interviewed was different in that regard. So let me give you some, let's see if I took it down here. I believe I did somewhere. There we go. John Mack's website is, get yourself a pencil or pen if you want this. It's John, Johne, Mack, M-A-C-K, Institute.org. There you'll get to see everything about him. And I know you're going to like what you see. You can also get the interview that I gave of him through Facebook. And that one is www.facebook.com/John E. Mack, MD. Again, HN. John E. as in Ed. John E. Mack, MD. And there you'll see the interview that I gave of him. And you can partake in it in two ways. You can read the transcript, or you can press the button that says listen to the actual interview as it was on the radio in October 2002. So, since I had decided about getting more involved, since I moved to Sedona, get more and more involved with this ET situation, I went to a conference, met some people there, got one of those people to come on the show, and now this, after I decided to do this, this is, 19 years later, and this comes out, and I'm honored about the interview that I gave John Mack. So things are moving in this regard. And the timing is such that things, well, you can even see the disclosures. People are actually coming out and saying that this happened, or at least they wanted it investigated more because they believe it likely did. Even Senator in Florida, he came out with this very adamantly. Said we need to look further and further into this and may see where the truth may lie as far as ETs go. So the government's getting more involved. Everyday people are getting more involved. Doesn't that tell you something? Tells me that something is happening with another visitation, but maybe this one will be more collective. More not where just a few people see it or a city sees it. Like Phoenix did in 1997, by the way. But more like the people in the country or the world are privy to what's happening and get to see the truth of this. I've done some research astrologically, and I went back to 1947, June 1947, which was the Roswell happening. That started out with the government, local government, broadcasting that the ship had crashed and that there were aliens in the vehicle. That came out, that was real. Didn't take long for the government to come out and say, oh, no, sorry. That was a mistake. It's a weather balloon, the old weather balloon. That's what was up there. Sorry. Well, obviously people have been studying that moment in time in Roswell to see what they can come up with. And there's all sorts of, I wouldn't say proof exactly, but all sorts of information that tends to have us believe that this happened. This happened. And in June of 1947, there was a lunar eclipse in Sagittarius, with moon in Sagittarius. And there was a solar eclipse, sun in Taurus, new moon in Taurus. November, December this coming year is the same thing, except the solar becomes the lunar and the lunar becomes the solar. What I mean by that is It's going to be a lunar eclipse, Taurus, Scorpio, at the same degree, pretty much, 27 degrees. The other one was 28, within a degree. And then more amazingly, there's a new moon solar eclipse on December 4th. Catch this. It's at 12 degrees, 22 minutes of Sagittarius. The lunar eclipse back in 1947 in June was at 12 degrees, 22 minutes. Same exact to the minute. How could the universe not be talking to us somehow? So that's why I've been pointing toward that time period or close to that time period as something coming out to make us know more surely that we are not alone in this universe. We can feel it. It's time for us to know. I do believe that the more people that actually allow that in their hearts, the better chance it is of happening. We have to be open to be able to be shown. Are they good people? Are they bad people? Well, a lot of the people that John Mack interviewed said they were people that were trying to tell the abductees, that's not really good, they got abducted, granted, but they were trying to tell the people, you need to do something. Climate change with nuclear weapons. And some people have spotted in the past alien ships, UFOs, whatever you want to call them, near nuclear weapon sites all over this country. And that further makes you know that there are some good intentions. And maybe we're about to get like divine intervention around this is what. Considering them out in the divine realm. Speaking of that divine realm, we've always, as human beings, looked to the heavens, divine spirit, divine God, up there, the great mystery. And then there's the world down here. Until 1781, Saturn was thought of as the planet furthest out. Saturn is Yahweh, patriarchal God. It's a taskmaster, as Capricorn can be, as Saturn is. A taskmaster. If you don't do it right, if you don't follow the rules correctly, you will be punished. Or maybe you'll get a carrot for doing it well, but mainly the emphasis is if you don't do it well or right, you're in trouble. People get afraid of becoming different too much, because if they're different too much, which Saturn doesn't like, maybe they'll be in a mental institution, or maybe they'll go to jail. So they walk the straight and narrow, give their allegiance to that Saturn patriarchal God. In 1781, things changed in the heavens. Uranus was discovered. And if you want to know what a planet's about, get to know what was going on the Earth at the time that it was discovered. The time Uranus was discovered, we had the American and French revolutions pretty much were going on that time, or close to it. So what that was about has a lot to do with what Uranus is. And that is breaking down the control by kings and queens, by any authority figures who turned we humans into their slaves or servants or workers that help whatever project it is to get done better. But the money, I don't think anyone's going to argue with me, most of the money goes to the people that are running the corporations or the businesses or the governments. So no more kings and queens. Let's break that down, said the revolution. Let's break that down, no more. And a lot of good was done in that regard. But we've come back to kings and queens with different garb, like presidents who act like a king, like the last one we had. It's the same game when that happens. Uranus is about the people, of the people, by the people, for the people, right in the Constitution of the United States. The United States was born with the moon in Aquarius, and we're talking about Aquarius. Diversity within unity, freedom, liberation. Uranus represents these things, as does Aquarius, its ruler, the ruler of Aquarius, Uranus. And that's the beginning of out there, out in the heavens. And Uranus and then Neptune and then Pluto, which I'll talk about in a second, are all a part of the transition from the old age to the new age. So the more we can be in touch with Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, the more we can be a part of what they represent and what they are energetically, the more we can break out of the old world and go into the new world. But Neptune was 1846, and around that time, Marx had his theory of the part that was important, not communism. The part that was important is the way that workers were treated, so the corporations, big business, could make more money. That's what was going on at that time. And in 1930, when Pluto was discovered, the thing that sticks out to me the most is that Gandhi helped get the people in India to fight against the British Empire for their own personal rights. So you can see this theme here, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. It's about power to the people, about breaking down the old establishment and breaking away from kings and queens, or even the idea that some people are superior and some people are inferior. That gets us nowhere. Well, my religion's better than yours, so I'm going to kill you in your religion so that mine will be the religion. My country's better than yours. I'm going to stomp on you so that everybody knows that my country is better than yours. That's too much of what the old world was. So here's an extra ingredient to all this. You got the Saturn on down, and we understand what that is. Uranus on out. Now, if you got Uranus on out that you have allegiance to, and you don't have any allegiance to Saturn on in, you're not going to be able to handle a regular life. You're not going to be grounded. You're not going to be connected to life as it is in an everyday way. So, in 1977, Chiron was discovered. Now, there's a lot of things said about Chiron, but I can tell you I know what Chiron's really about. Chiron is a bridge between the old world and the new world. Where does it sit in the heavens? Hello, right between Saturn and Uranus. Saturn, the old world, Uranus, the new world. That's where Chiron sits. In 1977, it was discovered. You know what happened in 1977? At the time, I didn't think it was a big deal. But you don't see these kind of movies anymore. Star Wars was made in 1977, but even more to the point, Close Encounters of the Third Kind came out in 1977. Like here are people coming from another planet down here, and they want to make contact with us. And it seems like good contact that wants to be made. Since then, all the movies that I've seen that are about the visitors, the aliens, make them murderers and killers. But in 1977, when Chiron was discovered, it was about the people from somewhere else came down here and wanted to make contact with us, wanted to make friends with us. That was 1977. And that was the beginning of us having a bridge between the old world and a new world. Let me give you a mythological story about Chiron that I think is helpful in this regard. Chiron was a mentor, a teacher of people, young people in Greece. And around that time, the myth is that Zeus stopped Prometheus. Prometheus was going to take, symbolically, check it out, was going to take the fire from the gods and bring it to the human family. In other words, kind of what we're talking about, personal empowerment. Like, we are responsible for our own lives and we can be empowered to take care of that life. We don't need kings and queens or the gods to be running us in order to do that. So Prometheus was with the fire to the humans. Well, Zeus didn't like that. Zeus didn't like that. That'd be like the old world that we have people now would stop someone like that from happening. So he tied up Prometheus, very Aquarian figure, Uranian figure, Prometheus, tied him up, and a hawk, I believe it was a bird, but I'm pretty sure it was a hawk, would come and start eating at his liver. And before too long, that Prometheus would have been dead. So in the myth, Chiron made a deal with Zeus and said, free Prometheus. And if you free Prometheus, I will take his place. And Zeus said, well, you know something? What's going to happen is you're going to lose your immortal self. You're going to be mortal, just like the humans that you're trying to protect. And Chiron said, okay, if that's the deal, that's what I'm going to do. So there's your bridge again. There's your bridge from the gods and goddesses, the divine, so to speak, and the human, everyday world. He was a bridge there between the two worlds. So in your chart, that's what he is too. So you got down that I said about this December, November, December, that things are going to change with another eclipse season. And before that eclipse season happens, a turning point will happen. And the turning point will happen in October. In October, 3 planets, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, will all be going from retrograde to direct. That'll be a big turning point. They start going direct. And then check out where they're going to be when they go change directions. Saturn will be at 6 degrees of Aquarius. Jupiter will be at 22 degrees of Aquarius. Pluto will be at 24 plus degrees of Capricorn. That Saturn will be at the United States South Node. And Jupiter will be conjunct the United States Moon. And Pluto will be fairly close to being conjunct Pluto in the United States natal chart. Its first Pluto return, beginning, which will take a couple of years. Now remember, we've talked about before, the Pluto in the United States chart is the military-industrial complex. And so that's what happens as Pluto returns to itself. Big shifts around the military-industrial complex. I know the United States is going to go through a lot. So is the Western world. You can see it already starting. My hope is that we come back to our values, all these Aquarian values that we've been talking about today. Now, that's all in the United States Constitution and Bill of Rights. And even though you can say, well, yeah, but look, they weren't living up to that. They had slaves. And, well, sometimes the idea is still good, even though the people aren't up to living it out. It's still brought as messengers, as channels, any way you want to look at it. A great way for us to see our human family and how it's going to break through things in the future, breaking away from the matrix and moving into this new age. So there it is. That's a turning point. And right after those October shifts, we have the eclipses coming up, the ones I have already mentioned. And so expect big change. Now people get mad at me when I say that, say I'm putting something out there that that I'm creating because I'm putting it out there and telling people, but I really don't believe that. There's war that's coming because it's inevitable with the way that we've been leading our lives and the paradigm we've been answering to. It's possible it can get stopped, but it's going to take an enormous amount of change of consciousness for a lot more people that have changed already. And so when that happens, it's going to be the old paradigm showing its teeth and on its last legs. When and if that happens, survival of the fittest will turn from me and mine competing against yours for who's going to survive into you and I and everyone else sees the danger ahead of us, sees the danger for our human family. And because we do, we band together. Diversity within unity, remember, big part of Aquarius and Aquarian age, which started in December of 2020. And a big part, big part is diversity within unity. That diversity within unity we can each do with ourselves too. Because you notice in a chart, astrological chart, there's the circle, and then inside the circle is where all the planets are sitting, right? So the circle is the wholeness, is the unity. All the planets are the diversity within a unity. And by the way, you know how much I preach about yin yang, and I'm never going to stop that. But that's about the opposites being held in wholeness. You know, the wholeness is the great feminine. And what's inside symbolically is the masculine. What I mean by that is just look at the organs that men and women have. The woman's is wholeness. You don't have to be a genius to see that. The man's is straight line. So when they get together, the greater feminine and the greater maleness, it's going to be where the wholeness holds the separate parts into unity. But we can't do that if the genders are at war with one another. So that has to, by the way, Deborah, speaking of the feminine, Deborah's going to be coming on in about 5 or 6 minutes. So stay with me. That'll be worth it. So the maleness separation. I know it's oversimplified. All men aren't that way, all women are, but you know what I mean. In general, the male organ says one thing, and the female organ says another thing. There it is. The problem is people argue that one's better than the other. How can it be? They're meant to come together. Neither one's better than the other one. The wholeness is meant to hold the separateness. And in your natal chart, I can help you with that if you'd like it. You can find integration by stopping to judge certain parts to yourself. As you stop judging those certain parts, they become more capable of getting along with all the other parts inside of you to join up in unity with all of you. And you'll be a whole person more than you've ever known yourself to be. When you take all those separate parts, no judgment. Not easy, because when we're growing up as kids in families or going to school or going anywhere, there might be traits that get judged, right? You're too aggressive. You're too nice. You're too. And those are what make people shut down a certain part of themselves. And as they shut down that certain part of themselves, that part of themselves starts taking the person down because it's got resentment. And in that resentment, it causes problems in the body, in the soul, and in relations with other people. So you got to let in and accept who it is that you are, all parts of you, in order to be whole. And then you meet someone else or other people that are also whole. And then you've got your community and your relationships the way you want them to be. When I'm talking about the male and the female, I know those of you that understand it on a deeper level. It's not about heterosexual at all. It's about male energy and female energy. And all couples, all people have both inside them and in the relationship, always. In fact, Uranus and Aquarius is the ruling energy, the ruling sign for gay people. It is, always has been. And that's the age we're moving into. So judgments away from everyone and everything. Does that mean that we allow people to commit crimes without having to answer up? No, of course not. But being true to yourself does not mean you're committing a crime or that you're insane or that there's something wrong with you. If you repress it, it becomes a monster that could be something wrong with you. So you got to get back to its nature and let it back in and be a part of the diversity within your own unity. So I'm kind of getting ready to hand over the microphone to Deborah. Our future shows are going to have a lot. Oh, wait, I forgot to give you something. Deborah, hold on for a second. On Monday, there's going to be a free conference about the disclosures that are coming out now. It's going to be 7 hours. You don't have to be there for all 7 hours. It's going to be 7 hours of talking about a lot of the things that are coming out in the open, the disclosures around ETs and UFOs. Don't miss it. You can find out more about it and register. You want to register, even though it won't cost you anything, at the portalofascension.org. PORTAL, Portal of Ascension, ASCENSION.org. Sign up, check it out. Even if you don't have the whole 7 hours free, you can get a lot of it free. You want to get a hold of me, Solus, SOULUS, at AOL.com. And now I think, Deborah, nod your head if you're ready. Okay. Here comes Deb. I'll probably see you with a minute left or something, and take care of yourself. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
You're going to be right here, though, during this whole time. So, hey, everybody. My name.
Oh, no wonder I can't hear you. Go on, Deb. Everything's fine.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Everything's fine.
Can you hear me, Leo?
I can very well hear you, yes.
Can everybody else hear me? Because sometimes when you have your ear thing in your earphones, it doesn't work for people to hear. I just want to make sure people can hear. If anyone can tell me, yes, they can hear me. Okay, awesome.
Okay, great.
So, hi everybody. I'm Deborah Ililia, Tellerico, Night in Tellerico. And I have, there's actually quite a few things I want to talk about. And Leo, and I'm going to share some things, and then Leo and I will dialogue a little bit about some of it. But I'm just really excited right now because it feels like I'm really feeling the energies of the new earth coming in really strongly. And I don't know about all of you out there, but what I've been noticing is in the waning moon and the last quarter moon, that a lot of my old stories are coming up to be released. And it's getting really, really powerful. And that happened again this lunar cycle, the 2 weeks before the new moon. Really old wounds, really old stories were coming up for me. And I did a lot of healing with myself and journaling and crying. And, I really sensed that I was letting go of these ancient, really old stories. And I just wanted to start with that because I think some of you might be feeling that. And it's just the old world, the old paradigm, the old belief systems, the old thought forms, the old wounds that are just like getting ready to be let go of now. So we can truly embrace and be fully in the new earth, which we've already started the new age of Aquarius. We're in the process of this birthing of the new earth and golden age. So there's some really exciting things that I wanted to talk about today. That's happening right now in the next couple weeks. And I'm just going to say them first, and then I'll talk about each one. But one is we're in the dog days of summer connected with Sirius. And I'm going to talk about Sirius, the Cancer new moon, which was last night, and beginning this new lunar cycle. I want to talk about the lunar cycle. I'm also going to talk about on Monday is the third gateway in the ascent of Venus in the cycle, which is the solar plexus chakra. And then Tuesday is the Venus-Mars conjunction, which is very powerful for the union of the masculine and feminine. And then we have Mary Magdalene feast day on May 22nd. So those are the things I want to talk about.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So the dog days of summer, I'm sure many of you have heard of that. What is that? They believe where it's very hot, but what it actually is, the dog days of summer are between July 3rd and August 11th. And it's when the sun, Sirius and the sun rise and set together. And symbolically what that means is that the sun is bringing the energies of Sirius to the earth. And the Sirius is also known as the star of Isis. And it's the brightest star in our solar system. And so it's just really exciting to be attuned with that, because Sirius is actually the star system that helps with Gaia's ascension and us moving into the new earth and the new Lemuria, and bringing in new sacred geometries, and I think the seeds for the new earth. So during this time between now and August 11th, you might want to just really tune, even though you can't see Sirius in the sky, at least in the northern hemisphere, you can at least start tuning into receiving the frequencies of Sirius. And there's that brilliant blue color is the color of Sirius. And just, allow your self to receive messages on your own evolution of your own consciousness.
What is Sirius like energetically? Do you have an idea about that?
I think it's a very high, I would say it's like the higher mind energy. Mm-hmm. It's like very high spiritual energy. It's a place where many libraries of light are. And so it has a lot to do with like higher truth and things like that. So, and then it's also connected very much to Egypt. And Sirius, the rising of Sirius, and I wanted to mention on August 3rd, Sirius will rise just a little before the sun, and then soon after we'll be able to see Sirius in the sky. And in ancient Egypt, Sirius was what brought on the rising of the Nile and their new year and their whole civilization. And they even had the ancient temples where there was a statue of Isis, and they had a gem in her eye, and the star Sirius would hit that gem right at the time of their new year when she first rose. So it's very significant in that culture. Yeah. So I want to go on to talk about the new moon, because we're in that new moon phase now. So last night at, 6:16 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, we had the new moon of Cancer. So as many of you know, and Leo's probably mentioned here before, whenever there's a new moon, it's when the sun and the moon are joined together in the same degree of the same sign. So in a way, you could look at it as the merging of the masculine and feminine in a similar energy. So Cancer is all about, it's like about nurturing energy. To me, whenever I think of Cancer, I think of the great mother. It's ruled by the womb, the breasts. It's like that great mother energy that nourishes all life, that nurtures all life. And that it's that mother principle within all of us to care for others, to care for those in need, to care for the earth.
Yes. And it's also about feeling safe and held. It's an important
Yes.
part of that.
Yes. And at home has a lot to do with
Right.
Cancer too. And so at every new moon, any new moon, it's always wise to pause and just really honor the energies, feel what it's like for you. You know, it might be a more inward, and it's also very intuitive energy. Cancer is a very intuitive sign. So you might want to pay special attention to your intuitions, your your impressions, psychic impressions that you have, your dreams. And at the new moon, and now we're in the new moon window of time, it's a time to set your new intentions for the new cycle, refresh your altar, do a little ceremony, write in your journal. What are your new intentions of how you want to nourish and nurture and mother yourself more? Because we all know that to really be there for others, we have to give to ourselves. We have to nurture, love, and honor ourselves. And then how do you want to bring more nurturing and nourishment into your life, into your relationships, into your family, your community, and with Mother Gaia? How do you want to nurture and nourish our planet and all life? So those are the things that we can focus on as we begin this new lunar cycle, which will be for the next 28 days. So that'll be the focus energetically of this lunar cycle of, learning what our needs are. Cancer has a lot to do with our personal needs too. So really tuning into your needs and the needs of our planet, the needs of your family, the needs of your partner, your children, your grandchildren. So it's that kind of energy.
This lunar cycle lasts till August 8th. That's when the Leo new moon is.
Yes.
August 8th.
Great, which is very powerful that the next new moon is on August 8th, which is 8/8, which is considered the Lion's Gate, which is a very powerful time, a very powerful portal. And it's right after Sirius rises too. So then we have on Monday, we have this Monday coming up, which is the 12th at 4:14 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, is when Venus and the moon will conjunct each other. So two feminine energies conjuncting each other after we've just had the new moon, which is powerful because it was the masculine, feminine joined together in Cancer. Then we have the moon and Venus joined together in Leo. And in the cycle of Venus, which I've been studying in a wonderful journey in a class called with Venus Alchemy, I'm working with the cycle of Venus and learning all about it. And there's gateways because there's Venus when she's in the underworld, when she rises as the morning star, and then she goes hidden into the underworld when she's with the sun, and then when she's not visible in the sky, and then she rises up in the evening sky, and then she's in her ascension process. It's very much connected to the cycle and the ascent and descent of Inanna, the ancient Sumerian goddess. So I've been studying this and tracking it and following this the last few years. So right now Venus is in the evening sky, and you'll be able to see if you look. I'm not sure exactly what time you'll be able to see where it'll be visible, but you'll see the very crescent moon conjunct Venus. And it's the gateway of the solar plexus in the rising up. So that sets a theme for the month around issues of the solar plexus, which have a lot to do with empowerment.
Yes. And
the use of our will, and our will being aligned with the divine will, and also, the sun. I always think of the sun shining because the golden color, the yellow color is the color of the solar plexus. Yes. So that energy of joy and radiance and, knowing who you are and standing strong in who you are and your sovereignty are very much the themes during this gateway until the next gateway in August. So just beware of your belly, any issues coming up there, your solar plexus, and just, tuning into your own sense of power, inner power,
Yeah.
and empowerment in your life.
Speaking of the stomach, yeah, it's like really true. But people oftentimes, when they're not getting enough nutrients, they'll have stomach aches, stomach problems. Sometimes they'll go to a doctor. Doctor can't find anything wrong. And once you talk to the person about the fact, there's nothing nurturing in your life. You're not
Exactly.
nurturing yourself. You're not with nurturing people. You're
Yes.
around negative situations, and you just don't feel good in your stomach. Because that's where you feel it. You look at the stomach when we're babies. You know, that's like really important because our mother gives us her breast or gives us food in some other way, and we digest it. So the whole idea of feeding ourselves has a nurturance to it from day one.
Yes, and it's very in line with the Cancer new moon too.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
those two together, and the umbilical cord is in our belly, right?
Right.
That where we received our first nourishment in our body was from our mothers through that cord, which is in our belly between our sacral and our solar plexus. So yeah, that's very interesting
Mhm.
to remember that. And so so that's going to be a theme for this month. And then I wanted to talk about next, which I'm really excited about. I don't think it happened. I don't know how often it happens. Maybe Leo, you can think about that. But on Tuesday, July 13th, at 6:33 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, Venus and Mars are joining together, conjunct in Leo. And I got really excited when I discovered that because there's been this theme coming into my life and my awareness this last few weeks and then I realized, oh my gosh, these Venus and Mars are coming together. I hadn't even consciously been aware of that. And it's like there's this theme right now of the sacred marriage of the masculine and the feminine. And it seems to be like everywhere I turn, it's coming into my awareness. And I just did a webinar today about that and about the sacred union. So this week, and this Tuesday especially, is a wonderful time to do a ceremony to honor your sacred union within you. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And also, if you're in a partnership, to do a ceremony with your partner, recommitment, re-honoring of your relationship, and that union of the masculine and feminine, whether you're, in a same-sex relationship or whatever, to still just be honoring that. Because the truth is that we all have a masculine and feminine inside of us. And for me, as a psychotherapist, spiritual psychotherapist, I studied Jung in graduate school, and he wrote a lot about our inner anima and animus.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a lot of work around that union of the masculine and feminine, and it's called the Mysterium Conjunctionis, which is a Latin word for the sacred marriage. And the truth is what I wanted to talk about for a couple minutes is that the union of the masculine and feminine first comes within us, no matter what gender you identify as. And with all the way it is now in our society, whatever you identify with, it doesn't matter. We all have this union of light and dark, positive and negative, yin and yang, masculine
Yeah.
and feminine within us.
That's exactly what we were talking about earlier about how we have to stop splitting that yin yang symbol apart and start bringing all the opposites together because that's how they're meant to be. Could you imagine hot water and cold water, at odds with each other? It's crazy. The opposites are meant to be in wholeness, not to be separate from each other.
Yes, and we started all in as part of source, and the source is one, the oneness, right?
Exactly. Yes.
And then there was the division to get to know each other, and then there was a masculine, feminine. Something I learned today in my webinar was that actually in Lemuria, that the people in Lemuria were actually androgynous. They didn't have separate sexes. At that point they were one, which is really amazing. I know I don't have that much time left, so I wanted to just say how important I feel this divine union and sacred marriages this week, especially to really tune into. And that leads me into on July 22nd, every year is Magdalene Feast Day.
Yeah.
And what's exciting is I just heard in my Venus class today that the Pope, our recent Pope, made it an official holiday, Magdalene Feast Day. And as many of you know, Mary Magdalene was portrayed as a prostitute when actually she was a very high initiate. She was a high priestess.
Tell the people about our trip to southern France if you got a second to tell them about that.
Yeah,
Mary Magdalene.
Yeah, I want to finish this thread that she was a high priestess. She trained in the mystery schools. She was an equal to Yeshua, and she was portrayed as not. And her being acknowledged as who she really was now on the planet, as the wife and sacred beloved of Yeshua Christ, and she was his equal. And that's being more and more coming out now through Gnostic texts and things like that, that she actually, she was his equal. He was a high priest, she was a high priestess, and they had this, divine union, the sacred union. And so back to what Leo brought up, is Leo and I went to southern France to actually go to the lands where Yeshua and Mary Magdalene taught together. And it was quite amazing. It's a place where the Cathars were, and the Cathars were an amazing group of very evolved souls who honored the path of Mary Magdalene and Yeshua, and they honored the earth and the goddess, and they were annihilated in the Inquisition.
The church.
Yes. So I just wanted to say that on the 22nd is the day that we honor Mary Magdalene. And this year I received guidance that I'm going to do a ceremony for anyone that's interested, that listens to this. You can let me know. I'm going to be creating a ceremony to honor Mary Magdalene and the return of the divine feminine, and also the sacred union, because Mary Magdalene was all about the sacred marriage of the masculine and feminine. And I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to leave you all with that. And if you need to reach me, you can go to my website, Gaia Sophia, templeoftheheart.com, or reach me at Elelia, which is ELELIA, at Gaia Sophia, templeoftheheart.com. Thanks so much, Leo.
Thanks, Deb.
I know it's time to stop, but
because they told us it stops a couple of minutes before the end of the hour, so that's what we're talking about. They stop us at about 57 or 58 of the hour. So everybody, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. That'll be on the 24th of July. And again, if you want to get a hold of me, it's Solus, SOULUS at AOL.com. LeoKnightonTellerico.com is my website, where you can find out about where the blog is and how to get on it, services I have, all that. See you in a couple of weeks. Bye, everybody.